This is the third in of three sessions. We think it's going to be three, it might be fourth, depending on how much we cover today. So the idea here is that we've got a sales for freelance professionals. Again, that's third session. The first two, of course, are out there. We've posted the first one inside of Slack. We'll get the second one cleaned up and post that, and this one will follow. The goal here is to, one, is this workshop for you if you're in the creative space? I think it is. If you're looking to gain new sales and learn some techniques about sales and working even with existing accounts, this is for you. We do take a focus here on what are professional services and projects. We've talked a bit about passive income. That's not the focus necessarily here, but certainly bring it up. Today we've got, I should introduce myself briefly to the new folks here. I'm the founder of Teamwrkr, and I've been working in sales and direct client experience for about 30 years now. I built and sold a business, and today I'm just super interested in what's going on in the freelance space, and hopefully I can add some value to all of you out there. My goal is to help as many people as I can, and I started out on this about 8 or 10 months ago, and here we are with all of you, so thank you for joining. The workshop has been organized into 3 sessions, like I said. Today, we're going to refer to a system to secure new work and really talk about some hardcore kind of tactics you can embrace to do that. We've got, we'll talk about understanding buyers and influencers and what I call playing win-win. Let's make sure, sorry, I might have jumped. Meeting norms, of course, yes, if you can mute, great, and everybody is on that. We do have chat enabled. Kristen, if I can ask you to take a peek at that and make sure we're not losing out on any chat as I'm going here and jump in. We do want to save questions for the end, so I'll kind of crank down through all these slides for you to make this efficient. Today in session 2, or recapping session 2, I should say, we ended up talking about platforms versus networking. That is to say Upwork and Fiverr versus developing your own networking and you being strategic about your own network. We talked a lot about ideal client profile and developing that. You may have seen a recent post about that on our Instagram channel. And we went through some steps tapping into your own network. And those are certainly out there in the recording, and we'll make the slides that we've got here. Those are available in our Slack channel. Last but not least, talk about specific nurturing efforts. And we're going to talk about today is more along the lines of how do we now take that practice of, once you've got that network going, you've got some sales opportunities in front of you, how can we develop a system to secure that new work over and over again? I want to talk about, I'm going to bring back something, a blast in the past called Miller-Hyman techniques. We'll talk about buyers, their influences, and the modes that they're in. And I want to talk about playing win-win. I think that's a huge thing, and you'll see about that down the road here. Going back, way back to session 1, we talked about choosing a system over a goal. And systems are better than goals because they allow you to measure and manage what you're working on. They're making you more efficient and effective in the long run and getting away from short-term success and thinking long run. And we all as freelancers, we've come into this business making a choice to do this in our careers. And I just want to help everyone to be successful in the long run. So it's great to get short run stuff. Long run is harder. The question is there a system out there that we can use to manage sales and client management, even after you secured a client, that we could grab as freelancers and just use it? And I think, quite frankly, is that yes, there is. And I want to recommend a book. Much of what I'll talk about today comes from a book called The New Strategic Selling. It was first written in 1995 and updated a few years later. I'm not even sure if they've done a new version of it. I looked on Amazon. It was written by Robert Miller and Stephen Hyman. And they really boiled down what was 30 years worth of complex sales. They were talking about major sales, big projects going to big organizations. And they studied salespeople and great sales managers. And they talked about how you can take that and share that or scale that rather, and make a system out of it. I learned this over the years. And this was something that I thought we all could. I look back and I said, what I've learned over the years, how can we embrace something from the past and bring it forward? I think this really relates today. They focus a lot on what they call a complex sale. A complex sale involves multiple people in the buying process and maybe even multiple things that are being sold at the same time. Complexity. And I think that really, really is what we face today. You don't necessarily walk in talking about one thing you're going to do for a client. You might think it's one thing that you will do, but ultimately it's a complex things. For example, if you're doing this an email campaign, maybe it's a logo design. There'll be multiple revisions of each email or each logo that could go out there. That makes it complex right away. There'll be multiple people involved in talking about that logo or even that email campaign. It's complex. So it's rare that you have this one-to-one sales opportunity or client management opportunity. I do think that going back to session 2, we talked about Upwork and Fiverr. With those or other sites like them, freelancer.com, et cetera, those sites have taken and boiled down to this methodology that they think they can connect you one-to-one with the buyer. We all know what has happened with those sites. It's become someone, even I think in our group, called the reverse cattle call, collapsing rates. The competition becomes around rate, not about performance. So I want to highlight that because I think this book is really important. I'm going to grab a lot of things from this book today and weave them into the conversation and also talk about how they relate to us today in the modern work world. Last but not least, I want to talk about this book touched upon psychology. Today we might call it psychographics. Super interesting concept about where people are in their mind around this purchase from you, if you will. So let's talk in particular about people, we might call them buying influencers, and the modes that they get in. I think it's human nature that when we talk to someone about a project we want to do for them or anything really, we're most comfortable just talking to the people who are most comfortable with, right? Just people we want to talk to. But as we go through our working day, we know that we provide a lot of valuable solutions that can impact a business lots of ways. And so there's probably a lot of people out there in that customer of ours that want to talk to us about the project. We just might not see them. We should know who they are and how they impact the sale and the long-term relationship you might have. So straight from Miller Hyman here in this technique, they've broken it down into 4 different buying influencers and they labeled them. Now, there's the economic, the user, the technical, and the coach. Now, the question is, are these, is it important to add others? I'm sorry, I don't know why this is going this. There we go. It could be, helpful to label some other ones, but maybe not. You won't always engage all of these. I want to say that right away. You're not always going to engage every one of these. Sometimes a person can occupy 2 roles. We'll talk a little bit about that. And that's sometimes a good thing. So the point is just to uncover and resolve issues with each one of these people or all the people in these modes. In a larger opportunity you have, there might be more people. In a smaller one, there might be less people, but that's not always true. I will say if you don't uncover these and talk to them and think through it, you're adding risk to your opportunity here. So how do you secure new work and the work you want to do? You should uncover and make sure you reduce your risk. One thing to remember here too, even though we're labeling this and putting people in buckets, no company buys anything, people buy stuff. People sign up to work with you. So remember that in your whole process here. It's not just a label or the company or someone signing the contract. There's actually a human being out there deciding to do this with you. Let's talk first about the economic buying influencer. This is the person that releases the funds for your project. The thing about it is they're not often visible to you. I think we've all had experience where speaking with someone and say, well, let me talk to the boss about that. Let me talk to someone else about that. They're the ones who have the budget for that. They're often, in fact, shielded from you by that person who's telling you they're going to go talk to them. Remember one thing here, it's not a committee. There's almost no situation I can think of in the very long time I've spent in sales and in management that I've encountered a situation where, well, there's 3 people deciding to actually release the funds to me. No, there's usually one person. Okay, they're influenced and part of this group decision-making, but sooner or later they say, yes, we'll buy this. So be aware of that. And if you're getting this story from someone else about, oh, well, it's a committee, we're all going to meet next week on it, try to make sure you uncover that risk and deal with it. The next buying influencer is the user buying influencer. And this is a person that judges the impact of your solution on their particular job. So for example, oh, well, Phil doesn't get me the designs today by 2 o'clock. I'm going to have to miss my kid's soccer game. So what I do directly impacts them and their job and their role. That's a pretty straightforward one. The next one is the technical influencer. And their job is to screen out people like me or you and say, well, are they really qualified? How will they help us? Put a little sunscreen there. I think that's what that is. So they screen you out and they say, oh, here's a reason why we shouldn't use them. Oftentimes, these folks are referred to as those that can say no but can't say yes. That's not to sound put them down for their role. In fact, these are really important people in an organization. They're uncovering issues, but make sure that you deal with them one at a time. That's really an important factor here. Remember, just because they're called technical buying influencers, they might not be technical. So it could be someone said, "Oh, we don't use Canva, so we can't use Phil's solution. He only uses Canva." Right? Well, wait a minute. How do I overcome that? Right? So it's a technicality. It could also be someone in a contract role, right? Oh, you want to get paid ahead of time for this up front. We don't ever do that. Sorry, we can't sign the contract. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. The last influencer is the coach. And this is the key person you have. And I'm going to guess that many of you see coaches out there. Sometimes you might call them your mentor in the account, someone like this who really guides you on your effort. And they have 3 key elements in order to be your coach. And if you don't have these 3 key elements, they're probably not a coach for you. One, you have credibility with them. Oftentimes you see this when you gain work through a referral, right? Oh, they're conferring credibility on you. They'll say, oh, you should work with this person. You should work with Kristen. You should work with Steph. That's credibility. But you have credibility with them in particular, in this case, to be the coach. They have credibility with all the other buying influencers. They're usually a very impactful and influential person in their organization. So that's a very key element there. And lastly, they want your solution. They see some value. They're into it. They're like, yeah, we want to get this done. This is a key person that for you to identify in the path that you're going down anytime you're trying to work with an organization. Now, I want to also point out here that this person can move on you, meaning that they might be your coach today and they might not be on the next effort because maybe they don't see your solution as valuable in the next effort. So be careful of that. Just because you have a mentor in an organization or what you think is a coach in an organization right now, that might change down the road. Okay. Not good or bad, just what it is. Now, I think a big element, and this is tying together some of these Miller-Hyman techniques and bringing them forward to where we are today. Remember that not all the influences are internal to your client. I can tell you, I work with a lot of freelance professionals out there in the world, solopreneurs. They would have an impact on my decision to work with someone else. I would refer to them and say, hey, do you know this person? Have you ever worked with them before? What do you think of the proposal, et cetera, et cetera. So this is actually a twist on all this. We can't just think that they're going to have a business card. I'm not sure this exists anymore, but a card that has a company name on it, right? It might be an influencer that's outside the organization. So you want to ask questions around that early on in the conversations you have with your prospects. Well, now that we know these roles, you have to ask yourself what drives action within this community of yours that you've built. And this brings us into buying modes. And in today's world, we call these things psychographics. So buying modes are really buckets for the psychographics that everyone you encounter has. And psychographics, if you're not familiar with the term, it's really the psychological and cognitive attributes that an individual has that reveals beliefs, values, or goals. And so, I said, in particular, it's the individual here. I want to refer back to that. Organizations don't make decisions, people do. So how does this relate to what we're working on as freelancers? We all of us, or many of us, said, I want to freelance because I want to work on the work I want to work on, when I want to work on, et cetera. So I have this sort of happiness quotient over here. And in order to satisfy that, this is a big element, because finding work you want to do and can be successful doing is related to the psychographics principle. The other element here that I think is really important, we talked about this back in session 1, was your stress clock and how we minimize stress in our work lives. The ability to organize yourself and see these folks in the people that you're talking, these individuals, and the modes they're in is going to really help you to allocate your time and be more successful in that system, back to that systems principle again, and making sure that you're talking to people in the right way. There's 4 buckets here. The first one is growth, second, trouble, third, even keeled, and the fourth is overconfident. Just like the buying influencers and the types that we labeled there, you could probably find more buckets to put people in, and maybe there's some new ones out there that we can think through. But overall, maybe that's not worth doing. I think right now, if we stick with these 4, you'll see that most people fit into these. Let's dig in. The first one is growth mode. Here's a person who believes there's a gap or discrepancy between where they are and where they could get. Where should they be? And it's usually this concept that we can do better, and there's opportunity out there we could execute on. They're very action oriented, and they're really ready to say yes to your work and your solution. Your solution does need to close that gap for them. Where are you today? Where could you be? Okay, here's how I help you to get there. Might be that you want to get, as I said, better design work on your Instagram posts. I can help you to do that. That's an example. Well, they welcome incremental change as well here. There are people who are saying, geez, if I could just add on a little bit more, we're going to grow dramatically. So growth mode is the most positive of all the modes that we have out there. Very easily discussed with the person. The next one is trouble mode. This is where someone believes they need to take action to prevent a bad outcome. We need to change our position here, or it's going to get worse. Again, your solution needs to address that. Remember that the trouble mode constantly trumps growth mode. If I feel that I'm in trouble, I certainly am not thinking I'm growing. I have to fix my trouble first before I can grow. So in this sense, urgency rules the day. These folks are going to be very interested in acting quickly. And we'll talk about a little bit about making sure you set boundaries and things like that with your clients. But here is very important to do that, because someone's going to say, oh, I'm in trouble if this doesn't happen. How soon can you help me? And they'll tend to look past some other things. But there's someone, again, that you have an opportunity to speak with directly about how you can solve their problem. The next mode is even keeled. It's just what it implies. These folks are very balanced in their approach. They're thinking that there's really no need to act today. I think I'm okay for right now, but they recognize things can change, and they'd like to know more and stay in contact with you, right? So tell me more about what you do. They may say something to the effect of, can you explain to me, if I had a hypothetical problem, how you would help me? Don't think it applies today, but what if this happened? The next mode is overconfident. And this is the one mode where you really have zero chance of action from this person. And you've probably met a couple of people like this in your life. Like, oh, everything is great. Why would I need anything you offer me? It's crazy. I'll never buy anything you have, right? And we've all kind of met people like that, even in your personal lives. Oftentimes these people lack self-awareness and humility. They're not action-oriented. In fact, they are really disincented by their psychographics to proceed in any direction other than the path they're currently on. So what can we do with these people in the buying modes that they're in? How do we address this? Because the growth and trouble mode are looking for action, or action-oriented folks, they might even be urgent. That's an area where you can definitely position your solution and make sure that you can address and continue to speak with them about it. Even keeled people you stay in touch with. They ask for it. Let me know how things progress with you. What's going, keep me in the loop. Send me an email, reach out. Very open to staying in touch. Why? Because they recognize that things can change. And even keeled people know that they could go into growth or trouble mode at some point. That's when they're looking for your solution. Overconfident folks, they really are not someone who you can communicate with on an ongoing basis. You need to wait for them to exit. And by exit, I mean they may exit back into growth or trouble mode, or they may exit the organization. Overconfident people don't last very long in organizations that are well run. So beware of that, especially as you allocate time, and that's what I want to talk about next. Allocating your time accordingly and reducing stress is really important in our world. And if you constantly allocate time to an overconfident person because you believe, oh, I have to solve their problem or I'll never get my sale, I'll never get this piece of work, whatever it may be, you're going to probably waste a lot of time. If you continue to stay in touch, with an even keeled person makes a lot of sense. You should do that programmatically. It may be through an email list you have, and maybe just you sit down on a Friday and you do your networking and you go back and you touch base with them. But growth and trouble mode people is where you ought to focus, because they're the ones that are interested in making a decision soon. So as I think about the stress clock here, make sure that you allocate your time accordingly. And don't get caught up working with or talking with people for an extended amount of time who just aren't going to make a decision anytime soon, especially if you need to kind of move work forward in your sales funnel, if you will. Let's do some examples and see if you can identify the buying influencer and the mode that they're in. The first one is, maybe they say something effective. I really want you to help us, and I believe you can. And I've talked to the team, but Phil and Sarah on this team, they have some reservations. You should probably talk to them. Just know that we need to move pretty quickly on this. That is an example of someone, if you can't guess it yet, who is a coach who's in trouble. So you've got someone here, they believe in you, they believe in what you're positioning, they've got credibility. Hopefully you identified that. They're actually talking about people on their team. And they know that they have reservations because they've talked to them. But they need to move quickly. That's identifying someone as well. Why? You can ask a lot of great questions here. Why should we move? How quickly do you want to move and why? Or, do you have any information about Phil and Sarah that I should be aware of and that I could speak with them about directly? Okay, so there's your coach. They're in trouble mode. And what would I do here? I would allocate time. I would absolutely allocate time in my schedule to speak with them. Another example would be someone that says, I checked out your contract and I don't know even where to start with this. There's a lot of things in here that we've never agreed to with anyone else. And I gotta be honest, I'm not really sure where the rest of the team is going here because I thought we were doing a great job. We're really increasing our followers on Instagram, even without your help. So I'm not really sure where the rest of this the other folks are on this or why they chose to put you in contact with me. What we have here, pretty obvious, is an overconfident person. And I would label them as a technical buying influencer. They're looking at the contract. They're looking at different, elements that they can screen you out with. And that's okay. Again, neither good nor bad or any of this stuff, but I would not spend a lot of time with this person because they're terribly overconfident, right? Why would we use you? I don't understand why we would do any of this. I don't think, and by the way, I did not mention this earlier, you don't move people out of modes. The psychographics, you don't have that option, as you probably know in your personal life. You can't really change people's psychographics today. They change over time. And so being aware of that means I don't battle. I don't try to swim upstream against someone's psychographics. I flow with them naturally. And I say, okay, well, this person's in this mode right now. They're overconfident right now. That's okay. I'm going to allocate time speaking with other people about this opportunity that I have here and make sure that I have all of them aligned. And again, I don't always need every buying influencer to vote yes on this. I definitely need the economic buying influencer to vote yes, right? Unless I'm doing pro bono work, right? But I do need to get confidence built in other people that are in modes that they're going to buy from me, okay? So what's takeaways? The first one is make sure you identify the buying influencers and use the system here to do that. This has been tried and true. It's 30 years old, almost 30 years old. People have been using this a long time. I think we can leverage it here as freelancers. Pay particular attention to cultivating your coach, but don't ignore the other influencers. Just because you think someone has the check in their hand, so to speak, to say they'll buy this from me, they have the money and they'll do it. Don't ignore others because they might be impacting your sale because they're influencing that person behind the scenes and invisible to you. Spend some time thinking about the mode each influencer is in and don't try to move them out of that mode. It's just where they are today. Acknowledge it and work in that framework. Remember that growth and trouble mode are looking for solutions where the other ones likely aren't. Overconfident people will either change or they're not going to be present in your deal anyway. So stay in touch with the even key of people and know that they move to growth or trouble mode while you reduce time that you spend with overconfident people. Okay. Now remember, you might not uncover all these people, might not have four buying influencers, or you might have 3 influencers who are overconfident folks. It's up to you to organize that, but definitely remember, you have to touch bases and understand if you don't reduce this, if you don't identify these folks and deal with them, then you're going to have risk of losing your either opportunity or an account. Now remember, increasing the risk and wasting time drives up your stress. But if you use these techniques, the opposite can be true, right? And that's really what we're driving at. Let's look at the positive outcome by employing a system and using these techniques. You can find work you love doing and work with people you want to work with. And I know I see our guy jumped on here. He talks a lot about gravitating, bringing people towards you that have similar values and belief structures. That's huge. That's unbelievably important in the world that we work in today, because not only will you have fun doing the work, enjoy the work, probably do a better job of it, but it repeats on itself in a positive way. So we have this virtuous cycle that comes from it. So make sure that using this system isn't just about, oh, I want to gain this new piece of business. Of course, I think we all want to have new work that we can work on, or driving some new relationships in existing accounts. But get the work you want to work on. That's key to this. I want to take let's pause here if there's any sort of questions. I do have maybe another 5 minutes or so here. I'm going to use that now, and I want to talk about a key element in the framework, this Miller-Hyman framework, that I think does apply today. And by the way, again, I'll tweet out I'll post to Slack the book and all that kind of stuff. I think it's important to go look at this, because I think a lot of this stuff does apply, and it's definitely a book you can sort of bounce back and forth, and it's not a novel. You don't need to read through it. The plot's not very great. Okay, so you don't need to, there's not a lot of character development in this thing, but the techniques are very good. Let's talk about playing win-win here, and how what we do as freelance professionals and solopreneurs really influences the world of work today. This is what I'm passionate about, by the way. I saw an interesting hashtag the other day. It was called work order, so I shortened it. We've got the new work order here. And you're not just this is a quote from the book, and they said, hey, salespeople, we're betting you're not interested in just closing individual orders and taking your commissions right away. You want satisfied customers, long-term relationships, repeat business, and strong referrals. And we all want that. I think that definitely applies today to us as freelancers and professionals, the solopreneurs. So what does it mean then to play win-win? How does this work? Here's the framework. And I tell you, I've seen some of this apply in a lot of situations, not just in terms of working with clients on a sales opportunity, but inside of that account as you go through your day and working with people. There's 4 outcomes to almost any process. I win, you win. I win, you lose. I lose, you win. And we both lose. There's an interesting little game theory here, so bear with me as I go through them. First, we talk about I win, you win. So we both win. Great, smiley face, everyone, right? We get emotionally and financially satisfied. We're all happy with this. Seems that's the most straightforward one. Awesome. How about I win, you lose? In my career, I've had an opportunity to probably increase my price because someone is in a bad spot. Oh, they need my work urgently. I see this a lot on Reddit forums. Oh, they need my work urgently. I'm going to mark it up. Okay, well, you could probably do that. They're in trouble. I can help them right away. I'm going to mark my work rate up. Okay. Or maybe it's about unrealistic setting expectations, telling someone who's in trouble mode that you can turn this around quickly for them, and maybe you really can't, and do your best work. Ultimately, people on the other side of this figure it out, and they seek revenge. And we gravitate toward the lose-lose quadrant, because now instead of you winning and them losing, they're going to drag you into the lose-lose scenario. How about I lose, you win? This is my favorite freelancer trap in the sales process. So heads up here. You do the customer a favor, right? Oh, I'll lower my fees. I'll do some work for you tonight after hours. I'll get you into my day. Don't worry. Now, in my past, I've worked with dozens, if not hundreds, of sales professionals. It makes sense, right? I'll give it away in the beginning, and then they'll buy more later. I'll discount it in the beginning, and they'll buy more of it later. Okay, might be a good short-term strategy. I'm not even clear if it is. It might be, but your client needs to know this is a short-term deal you're making, right? This is not a forever thing. The problem is that they forget about that. And then you come back a month later and say, oh, my rate's different now, or my work structure is different now. We talked about this, right? And you're frustrated because they probably go, oh, why? No, I don't want to do that now. And what if they stop working with you then? Okay, so now we just ended back in the lose-lose category, right? So that trap right there is very important as freelance professionals, that we don't fall into that trap. We'll talk a little about that. Now, lose-lose. Nobody ever starts a game saying we're both going to lose here. Why would you do that? Nobody plays that way. But it's important to remember any category that has the word lose in it ends up in the lose-lose game. Okay, lose-lose quadrant rather. And that's sad. So how do you go play win-win? First of all, know the value of the services and price them accordingly. I think there's a lot of great sites out there, and some in particular that are able to show you pricing models. I would encourage you inside of our Slack group to ask that question in the AMA channel. I think we're all pretty open about pricing and pricing models. We have an international community here as well. So you're like, oh, are there differences? What should I be aware of? How would I price this? But price it fairly for yourself and for your customer. Remember as well that non-price value exists. What I mean by non-price value, what about if you constantly deliver on time? What if you have great communication with your clients? What if your work ethic or other intangibles can be demonstrated in some way through referrals, other elements that you can show them? The quality of your work, right? It's not about price, it's about the quality of your work. And that can have intangible aspects as well as tangible. Make sure you set clear expectations and boundaries. This is that I lose, you win category here, whether it's price, work hours, location, scope, deliverables. You can think of dozens of them here. Make sure that you set clear expectations and boundaries for people early on. This isn't a negative. In fact, it lands you in the win-win category way more often than it does lose-lose. If they exit the conversation because you're setting up expectations, then they're probably not a very good account, right? You know this through working with people, I'm sure. Going back to what we talked about earlier in the session, then seeking to understand the buying roles and the modes helps you to play win-win by recognizing the emotional and financial impact your performance can have on your clients, the partners you have, other freelancers and team workers that are out there, right? So if we go back and we look and we see that someone's in growth mode and we help them, we're honest with them about what we can do, great. If they're in trouble mode and we don't prey upon that, but rather we help them and close that gap for them, they're much more likely to embrace your solution, use you again, refer you to other people, and create a virtuous cycle. Same thing is to be said if you're working with other freelancers. As I mentioned, people outside that organization might be involved. Do the same thing there. You'll have a lot more opportunity to work with them down the road. So playing win-win is really, really important. So as we're wrapping up here today, I appreciate letting me run over a little bit. First of all, next steps. Take a look at an account or prospective guide you have and figure it out. Say, well, just break it down. How would I identify these buying influences? And what mode are they in? Do I know who the economic buyer is? Do I know, well, that person's really more of a technical buying influencer, right? And what mode are they in? Are they in growth mode, trouble mode, even keeled? Take our base system now after these first two sessions and coupling this together, build that influencer matrix and understand your key accounts and prospects by that strategy, that constantly evolving system that we have here that gives us the chance to not just have goals, but apply these techniques in a systematic way so you can change over time as needed or keep the things that are really working for you. By doing all this, you reduce the risks, you decrease stress, and you increase your chance of success. And that's what I think we all want. So playing win-win is the core place to start, and working back into what we talked about earlier in this session brings you the most likelihood of success. All right, so thank you, and I have time for Q&A if anybody has any questions for me in particular. What could I give you from this? Do you want me to post some stuff? Fire away, unmute, and as they say, I said earlier, release the hounds. Come at me. Anything? Do you consider overconfident technical influencers people who play devil's advocate or provide constructive feedback to learn from that help you improve your business, or better just to let go? So if I understand the question, and feel free to unmute if you're still there, Chris. Do I consider overconfident technical influencers? So that would be someone's going, oh, I'll never need your solution. And oh, by the way, this contract, you got to sign our contract. We won't sign yours. Are they just playing devil's advocate, or are they providing constructive feedback? Okay. So my stance on the world generally is I'm going to learn from every situation, right? I'm just going to learn here. So in this, if someone's giving me this feedback, like I'm going to learn as much as I can right now. So what is this person talking about? And I know they're in this mode. If you already identified they're in overconfident mode, they're probably not going to end up sort of embracing your solution. That's okay. If other people in the organization do, you may move forward with that. Just know that they're constantly a risk to you. So I would just say, take it as constructive feedback. You might find something where I've learned this a lot in contractual stuff. And I don't know if everybody here has a contract. You're not signing contracts with their clients. You probably should. Come at me in a DM or something later, or go to into the Slack group and post. People have them, they're available. Make it simple, but definitely use that constructive criticism, maybe to improve your contract. It might be some way that you could shorten your contract, improve it, something like that. So I would just say, back to my slide on like how you allocate your time, Krista, like don't waste a lot of time on it, learn all you can, and move on to other influencers. And if that's the only person you have there that you're dealing with, try to find other people in that organization. This is like the anti-Upwork, right? Like, you don't even see, usually getting like the algorithm writes you back and says, oh, I'm sorry, the role's been filled. Like 2 weeks later, you're like, I think Chris Cotton posted that in one of the, it was a great meme. It's like all this stuff. The final was like, oh, I'm sorry, the role's been closed. Then three days later, role is now open. Do you want to apply? Oh God, like this again. So take it as learning experience and go from there. Like I said, jump in on contracts and stuff over in Slack. Yes, I see Steph has her hand raised.
Just to piggyback off of what you just said, 2 weeks into me going freelancing, I ran into that trap, the I lose, you win, where I had my husband's band needed a new website. And he said that I do websites. So I made a little mock-up, like, here's the mock-up. It took me like a couple hours. I said, let me know what you think, and then we'll negotiate like either how to run it or things like that. No contract, just like, oh, here, I did this thing. Well, the leader of the band took my site, copied it onto his own web service, and then launched it himself. Took my copy, took my pictures, like everything. So, and then said, hey, thanks for the idea. And then that was it. So, yeah. So,
yeah.
So I was just like, like standing there. I thought, okay, how do I learn from this experience? And I thought, all right, this person clearly needed something that I provided, which means that I must be doing something good at my job. So I'm taking that as a compliment that I do some good work, but I'm also learning from this that I'm no longer doing favors for people without some sort of boundary or expectation at first. And that got me into doing contracts and things like that. So in everything, you're either learning or you're earning, and that's kind of how to take that. So just,
you guys know Naval? That's a Navalism, I think, right? If you know Naval Ravikant, I don't know if you ever, that's another great book if you haven't seen that one. Oh gosh, he's written a couple of them. He's heavy on Twitter. I'll link you guys in Slack. But yeah, you're either learning or you're earning, right? I think Naval expands that to even like, if you're not learning or earning, then you should be resting or working out or chilling on vacation. I don't know what. Like, if it's not one of these things, get it in this other bucket, because it's only worth doing the work if you are earning or learning, right? So I think that's pretty awesome. Let me see here. I'm actually gonna I hate this thing. Excuse me. I'm trying to admit someone. Admit Faith maybe jumped off and had to jump back in. Let's see. Archive has a hand raised. Yes, sir. What's going on today? I love that microphone, by the way, because I feel like you're in a studio, like somewhere, like just broadcasting to the outer reaches. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
What's up today?
Here's my studio. Well, finally everything is set up. The lighting and everything is back. The package and movers had destroyed my monitor, so I'm settling for the laptop, but I'm glad that it's looking good.
Yeah.
So yeah, first of all, thank you for these amazing 3 sessions. They were really amazing because, obviously, that I'm already in the agency lifestyle, but I know that if I had known these things initially, it would have helped me a lot. And I know my students as well who learn from me. I keep sharing these things, like I keep taking screenshots and I keep letting them know that, you guys should focus on the calendars and everything, because I literally have 7 to 8 calendars made for separate things, because I know that there's podcasting, there's everything all together, and I don't want to allocate my entire day for one thing altogether. So I'm like, I have separate calendars made. So you touched up on really amazing things. And what I'd like to add to the same thing Stephanie did as well, and it might take a few minutes. So if you don't have that much time, you can just cut me off right now. But what I really liked about this is that we always need to keep qualifying our potential clients. And that is something we did like until the last rebrand of our agency. We did that on a whole other level. We used to charge people just so that they were discovery calls. And that's mainly because we used to work with hotels and restaurants of Los Angeles and London, Ontario. So we qualified our clients in many ways. We used to always try to work with people we had a good vibe with, but we know that sometimes people just reach out to us. They're like, hey, can you tell us about this? And even though as creators, we try to keep the ideas to ourselves, when we're in the discovery call, we just start thinking, just start blabbering stuff because we are creators. The ideas are already turning around and we start to, already imagine things. So at my agency, we made a rule that if you're getting on a discovery call, you have to pay $500 to us because either way, I want this to be worth my time. I'm going all out for you, even if I haven't started working, especially as a strategist, I'm already creating the things in my head. So it helped me a lot because it qualified the clients. If the client is already willing to pay $500 just to interact with me, that means, yeah, they can afford my premium pricing. They are willing to commit to me. And even if they took my ideas, like, just the brief ideas that I blabbered out, and they decided to work with someone else, it still benefited me in one way or the other, because in that 1.5 hour that I gave discovering what is their possibilities and everything, I did get paid for that. So it's always good to qualify your clients and always figure out how you can, make sure you're not losing in any way whatsoever, especially if you're the kind of person who goes all out to, just help and, create that good impact for your clients.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a great example of where you learn not to lose in the beginning with the hope that you'll win later, right? Like there's the hope is not a strategy, as they say, right? So we've got to just, and I like your point too. You set a price point there, break it down. You set a boundary. You said, I'm not going to do this unless I was going to get paid for it. If they say, no, I won't do that, well, then that's okay. That's fine. Another technique there would be, I'll do this, you're going to pay me. If you embrace further work, I could maybe apply that to that other work, right? So absolutely. I think Stephanie just mentioned it here in the chat, like get skin in the game, know they're serious, especially if you're targeting sort of that premium pricing, model. I think everybody, I gotta be honest, I think everybody in our Slack group has kind of fled a lot of the Upwork, Fiverr kind of stuff. And they're like, I can't work for, $5 on this thing. It's not going to work for me. I need to make some more money. So, definitely we think about that as more premium pricing, and there's great techniques out there in the world to make sure you get that. So that's one of them. Make sure you get something, get their skin in the game early on. Well, I'm gonna wrap it up here. Thank you everyone for your time, attention. This has been a lot of fun for me. I will say that we've got some folks in the community who have already put their hands up to host workshops, which I think is incredible. I mean, I'm just in awe of all of you. So whatever we can do to foster this communication and group learning and things like that, I'm all for it. DM me, get me in the channels, whatever it is. Let me know what else I can do. But we already have some people who put their hand in the air, and it'll start out in April with some other folks from the community hosting some workshops. So I'm super excited for that.
Thank you to everyone.
Thank you everyone for attending and your constant participation in the Slack groups and all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much. You guys have a great rest of your day, evening, wherever in the world you are.
Yes.
All right.
Happy days.
Bye now. Happy days. Bye now.